What's up? The smell of porous is strong today. Well, I had assumed that this stream would be entirely about GameStop for the most part, and I promised people that as even if they never subscribed, any GameStop stuff would not be locked behind a paywall. So I'm keeping my word. Good morning, guys. What a shill. Let's wait for some more people to get in here, and then we'll get down to business, figure out why everyone's tits are just super jacked, and what it means. Do you remember only chat so you can keep up? I should be able to keep up okay. I don't think that many people are going to join on a Sunday. Right? Yeah. Dislike and diswatch. What should I get from Miguel's Juniors for breakfast? A carne asada burrito. No, carne asada plate with corn tortillas. Does Fidelity have a selection for cashless exercising of options? You're going to have to call them and speak with the options desk. Not a customer service agent. They won't know what the fuck you're talking about. You're definitely going to have to speak to like somebody at a trade desk. I don't know how many of these we have left. So I'm joining one and I'm in my hot tub. Bullish. This is the way, J Fresh. Ascendant Alpha Cat. Yeah, no problem. Spend time with the family or listen to Girk. Feels like MOASS tomorrow. Uh I don't know, right? People are still kind of coming in. Give me a minute and I'll start doing like the Q&A. G, thank you. G Money. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, man. What is calfless exercise? It's just upper body only. Because of you and your Discord announcements have literally blasted me from 0 to 100. I think so. I think, first of all, I've got to, unjack everyone's tits because that became a thing, including my own. And, so we're looking at this situation from a calm and collected standpoint. Thanks, Salty Dog. I appreciate that. Are prime brokers basically throwing their hands up in the air with all this news about short squeeze this month in January? I mean, I've told you guys for a long time that the counterparties are not going to take on their risk. They will destroy them and buy up their assets on the cheap. There is no question about their willingness to cannibalize uh, a risky position. You only have like 200 unused stream cards still available, so we have at least that many streams left. Stream cards are legally binding contracts to stream. It was in the fine print. I really appreciate everything you do and share. I'm ready for some violent asymmetrical upside. Thank you, all the pores. Fluffy Essa, I didn't read the contract. You can't give a contract to somebody who's functionally illiterate and expect that to hold up in court. Just use this to flex on the pores who are in today's chat. Love the stream and thanks for all the DD. Thank you, Velvet Jupiter. Don't think I've forgotten your game of briefly, temporarily slumming it the other day. I thought we wouldn't reveal Sunday service to the world until next year. Hashtag not a cult. Thanks, Pong. Can you do Discord audio for a few folks who can't watch the stream because data? Yeah. There we go. Discord audio's up. Thanks, Crizzles. I appreciate that, man. Quick name, thank you for becoming a Dillionaire, dude. Absolutely, Thaddeus. Happy Sunday to you as well. Awesome stream card, cool in. Membership message flex for the pores in here today before we get into the spicy stuff. Thanks for staying the course. Thank you, Canadian. Oh, it'll probably be a couple hours, leaning.
Yo. Let's get it. We're not a cult, yo. Just some pickle fiend fuckers, not a cult, no. Like them AMC suckers, not a cult, bro.
$5
some GME lovers, not a cult.
Is the truest. Thank you, not opinionated asshole. With everyone here, I'm going back to being ignored. I never ignore you, board gamer. Come on. Just sometimes. What's your take on DRS drying up liquidity so retail can't FOMO when MOASS happens? What? That's not how that works. Did you mention before they can only short 100% of an ETF a day? So there's a limit to how fast they can print shares. So meme ETF is only 696 shares a day. I'm aware. It's just hysterical that in the T+9 window that they can FTD before it puts them on the reg show list. They've reg showed the newest GameStop ETF, right? Like that's funny shit. So 9 trading days in the market, already on the reg show threshold list. Blake Collins, thank you so much for becoming a Dillionaire, man. I appreciate it. Hit me up on the Discord with you guys. I'll get you added after the stream's over. Yeah, the stream will be available afterwards as a VOD in the unlocked members only playlist. I'm gonna spill it here in a second. Just a couple more minutes, and I want chat to calm down a bit too. Known as MOASS by his people, led the poorest in the valley of the shadow of debt to the land of tendies from the clutches of Pharaoh Kenny. Thank you, Chalky Seki, for the Old Testament version of Pickle Financial.
Let's get it. We're not a cult, yo. Just some pickle fiend fuckers, not a cult, no. Like them AMC suckers, not a cult, bro. We some GME lovers, not a cult.
I recently discovered I only know how to buy calls in stock. I'm looking for someone to hold my hand now, as I don't know how to sell. I am Morgan Freeman. I built the Batmobile. Thank you, Morgan Freeman. We're aware of your accomplishments. I know XRC is on Reg Show, Hacksaw. Do you not read the announcements channel on the Discord? Calm down. You calm down. No, I'm calm. You calm down. Chant is a bit loud relative to you today. That's fair. That might be turned up a bit. B Jets, thank you for becoming a Dillionaire. Can we please not play subbing songs all stream long? I'll limit it in a bit. G Money. I like the fact that I can call G Money on the stream instead of my real name, which is, I assume, G Money.
Yo. Let's get it. We're not a cult, yo. Just some pickle fiends, fuckers, not a cult, no. Like them AMC suckers, not a cult, bro. We some GME lovers, not a cult. Not a cult.
Can you put some wrinkles on this? We all know GME's going to squeeze. The price will go to the moon and back. Ivy will get spicy too. Fidelity has historical volatility, 52-week high for GME of 952%. How long was that sustained for, though? Like, that could have been for, a couple ticks. But yeah, Ivy has definitely jumped a lot. Thoughts on the Europe energy crisis? Prices are up 800%. Grease nibbles, I have none. What's the crisis? Did they stop making energy? Oh boy, D's nuts. Yeah, that's not how that works. That's dumb. I'll start this stream off by saying the fake squeeze thesis is stupid. Really, really dumb. Propagated by people who are afraid of the unknown. They don't know how hard GameStop will squeeze. They don't know what price it will go to, which has ultimately always been the truth. And now they're scared of the potential of it actually happening, because that's more frightening than anything else. Ty Lee, I've over HV Sierra VWAP. Thank you for becoming a Dillionaire. All of you guys, Dillionaires, hit me up on the stream, or on the Discord after the stream, and I'll get you added to the country club. I'll get some songs going a little later, but I think we should probably start doing stuff and talking about important things. Can you explain the T plus 13 for XRT FTDs? Yeah, I'll get to that in a little bit. After the chat for the Dillionaires. Also, December 31 calls better for short-term games this week. Nah. 7-month Padfire membership, IQ. We all praise you for all of our glory. GME bullish. Okay, I know this is a strange request, but can we save the member FOMO and excitement for slightly later in the stream?
Like them AMC suckers, not a
ignored, but at the same time, there's a bunch of shit.
Not a cult. Not a cult.
So I know everyone's bullish as fuck, and the filthy pores have come in here and ruined our normally very civilized conversation. But it's important that they're here. So Might write a DD on this later. I'm still thinking about it. It seems like it will take up a lot of my time to do so, and I have very limited amounts of that today, unfortunately. But I will try to get down what I can in here. There's some... What the fuck is that? Is that working? Okay. So there's some indicators that you're entering a short squeeze. We've been seeing a lot of them lately. Illiquidity, wide bid-ask spread. Massive price drops. As margin dries up, naked call writers need to bring the price down to avoid not only having to hedge those calls, but having to possibly cover gamma exposure from them. So naked calls are what really seem to cause the massive price drops before large runs, like Volkswagen's dip before the rip. These dips are generally created synthetically because the illiquidity issue is realized here, and then the attempt to create liquidity by driving the price down, and then there comes a period of surrender essentially where they realize they can no longer sustain the downward price action and the stock begins to climb. One of the biggest indicators that you're leaving a period like that is large institutional ownership moving in. Large institutions like JPMorgan are very, very versed in identifying short squeezes and moving in on them. One, they have the capital to move in at any time they choose. So if they're moving in now, that's bullish. Their position is unhedged, which is essentially a YOLO when an institution does that. And when they're doing it with investor money, it's essentially them saying, this is guaranteed to make us money. We don't need to hedge it. Some other things, that would indicate a short squeeze, I think nowadays, more so than historically, is this listing of the ETFs on reg show threshold lists. It's pretty fucking important. It means, these ETFs have been failing, over 10,000 fails a day for 9 days straight. If you look at Turdferg's latest information, they've been just borrowing from ETFs as much as they feasibly can every day. We're even seeing that with the meme ETF, which barely has any GameStop in it at all, and has only been trading for 9 trading days and is already now on the reg show threshold list. So 9 days on the market, and they have run its FTDs already so high that it's made the reg show threshold list. So these are pretty important. I think that's something that I wanted to address first. The next thing I want to address is JPMorgan going long on GameStop. They probably are the prime for many of the shorts. They're one of the world's largest prime lending banks, if not the largest. Them going long GameStop is extremely bullish. It means that something we've talked about a lot in the past is coming to fruition, in that the counterparties, the lenders, are saying we're done. Right. And since the lenders are really the only people in the market that have any knowledge of the scope of the short position, a signal from them like this is very indicative. And so for everyone in here who's been following me for a long time, or maybe you're new here today, Congratulations on being in it first. You've done great. You bought calls at a cheaper price than JPMorgan did, and not everyone can say they did that. So we're going to beat a market crash to MOASS? We might. Could JPMC just be getting their shares to lend out? I think if they were going to do that, they'd have hedged their call position, Daniel. They did not. They bought. So shareholdings, it's confusing, the statement from Fintel, 20,800 shares of leverage. I'm at a valuation of 3 million something dollars. My question with this primarily is this delta value, or is this presumed number of contracts, right? Like presumed 100 shares per contract. I believe it's delta value, mostly just because of the cost, which means it's possible that JPMorgan has YOLO'd not only on calls, like long calls, but also out of the money ones, which is, I mean, I don't think I even need to comment on what that would mean. Do you imagine the borrow rate jumping now? Well, as the liquidity in ETFs dries up, and these ETFs start to get placed on the reg show threshold list, they will eventually have to turn to borrowing a lended, like from the SEC lending pool. I think the issue there is that by the time the borrow rate spikes, if you're using that as a signal of MOASS, it may be too late to get in. I think what we'll start to see is more and more ETFs hitting the reg show threshold list. And, you know, the borrow rate slowly trickle up, and then the borrow rate will just max out very quickly, I assume. It will go 0 to 100 real quick. I read somebody was saying that FTDs are non-existent. They've all been absorbed by swaps and options. Does this make any sense to you? Not really. It doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter what JP Morgan's intentions are, right? Because they've just signaled to the entire market that they're long on a short squeeze. That in and of itself is significant. For some of you that are still in AMC, you notice that JP Morgan didn't go long on that. What are your thoughts on selling option contracts during MOASS? Probably won't get any buyers. Will people be buying contracts? Yeah, no. Or is exercising going to be the only real option? No pun intended. Your pun was definitely intended. Exercising is not the only option. You can cash settle and take profits. Exercising really sticks it to them when, you know, in their moment of weakness. JPM read the 510 thesis. Were they in the money when they were purchased? Possibly, maybe not. I mean, if they have a contracts with a value like a delta of 0.10, right? Then, you know, that 20,000 share number is way more significant in terms of number of open contracts. It could be a hedge for something else. But why reveal it? They're prime brokers for everyone. They're fucking JPMorgan. That would mean that they're hedging Melvin's failure, Muhammad. Which is maybe even more bullish. Is there a way to determine JPMorgan's selected strikes? Probably not. No, you'll never know the precise position. What's the best day time to buy options next week? I mean, we'll see what happens Monday. I think IV picked up a little bit Friday, so IV is definitely a little higher now than it was on the dip. But I'll be picking up some probably Monday morning. So JP Morgan owns 20,800 calls as well as 112,980 shares. No, I don't think a fake squeeze is possible. Like a fake squeeze is going to create FOMO, right? And FOMO is something they can't control or predict. And so you can't control, like, you can't have a squeeze and then also have absolute control over it. They had to go to quite some lengths to stop us from hitting 483 the last time around. I don't think they're going to fake one, right? A lot of people are using, some clearinghouse exemptions as a reason that they could fake squeeze and, just like pick up later. But I think what people aren't understanding is that, like, there's a lot more to GameStop squeezing than just GameStop squeezing. Like, it becomes a contagion across the sector, across the entire market, right? Because as GameStop squeezes, there's ETFs that rebalance every day. That are constantly, and indexes that are constantly weighting GME heavier and heavier, which just is going to have a multiplicative effect on that increase in price action, right? Pickle Morty, thank you so much. You forgot the hugs, but back at you. At what price do you think people will stop buying options contracts if we decide to sell them? No idea. Uh, Give it a shot. If someone buys them, cool. If they don't, then don't. Risky though, right? Like, how the fuck do you know the peak? What if you sell contracts at, like, a contract at like 20 million? I mean, first of all, the strike has to be open for you to sell at it, right? So if we cross 950 in a day, and all of a sudden, the call chain's no longer relevant to the price, what, you're going to sell 950s? I don't think so. Do you have the ability to exercise 2 million shares with 20,000 calls? That's 330 million of GME, potentially. Does the reg share change some of your ETF fail dates? Or just more? I think it's not 20,000 calls that they have. It's 20,000 shares worth of leverage currently. Also, that's old. They could have more now. Does reg share change some of your ETF fail dates or just add more dates? It changes the way those ETFs fail. Reg shows first in, first out. So you have T plus 13 that they're on the list to settle. After that, it starts to force settle. So T becomes settled on day 14. T plus 1 gets settled on day 15. So on and so forth. And something can stay on the reg show list forever, right? It just means that they can't short through that ETF anymore after for their 13 days. So without they have to go through they have to pre-borrow in order to short through that ETF, which is not something that they want to do. Can they do anything with the puts they bought in January to affect the Feb calls? No. Which are you talking about, the out of the money ones, existential? Didn't you read Zinco's DD? Do you expect a drop from this price this week? We may have a small dip Monday, but I'm expecting mostly up Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. There may be an entry like near market open or something though. What information would an entity like JPMorgan be able to know that regular investors would never be able to? Oh, the breadth and extent of short positions on GameStop for starters. 20th Jan 2023, $2 put, 11-cent IV, 190%. Oh, IV 190%. OI 25,801. You need to go raid Uzinkos. DD on variance swaps. Those way out of the money put contracts that no one seems to understand are just simply a part of the replicating baskets that hedge variance swaps. You think we MOASS in December or January? Harder to say now. Revealing position and saying short squeeze is expected soon seems correlated. Yeah, no shit. Can you talk a little about the 13F reliability? If there are any other locations for this data for JPM that we can validate? 13F reliability is questionable. It's almost like they almost act as signals more than they do true reporting. They should be accurate and true as of the date they are filed, but they're frequently delayed or obscured. They obfuscate positions with call contracts and put contracts. Essentially never revealing that, using them to never reveal their hand to the market, but also to signal the market. So there's a lot of strategy involved with releasing 13Fs at the hedge fund level. As far as like SEC diligence in regards to 13Fs, slim to none. I don't think anybody actually checks or investigates them. As a matter of fact, I think I heard something a while back that they closed the department that audits them. So JPM has definitely raised the demand zone. If I recall, you did mention sideways trading. Not this week. This coming week, we have T+2 exposure from Gamma on the December 17th GME quarterlies and ETF leaps. I don't know when institutions will start to sell. I'm sure they'll model the squeeze and then, attempt to create targets that way. Is there enough new information to warrant a forward TA for the week? I don't think technical analysis is really going to help us right now. I might write a DD today, but we'll see. I have a bunch of other shit I have to do today. It's kind of a crazy day for me. So you think we MOASS in December or January? I mean, I've thought that for months now, Bastion. I know you follow the channel, so I'm trying to figure out where your confusion is here. I sent my deposit via ACH to prevent myself from FOMOing next week, and now it sounds like that might have been a mistake. Good JPM moves signal the start of FTDs being unwound in obligations warehouse as Prime's no longer content to just let IOUs sit. Possibly, depending on how much has actually made it to the obligations warehouse versus, what's just been continuously net settled. What do you say about Chase pertaining to AMC? They didn't buy contracts. Wait, I lost my place. Hold on. I know I'm super far behind on chat, but I do try to get to everyone's questions here. Oh, thank you, Average Joe. Yeah, I still think there can be an opportunity between December 27th and January 10th. I mean, like we knew with this theory that we could not predict catalysts, right? This it has the potential to be one, but that doesn't mean that we need to ignore the underlying mechanics. I'm pretty excited about this week. I don't know why the text isn't there. It's just safe to assume it's the usual gushing and thanking. Thanks for power leveling this pickle so I could button mash my way to freedom. You're welcome. Was last Sunday the last real members only stream? I don't know. Is cashless exercise the same as sell to cover? What are some disadvantages of exercising in this situation? Cashless exercise, usually margin. You can exercise and sell to cover. They're different. One of them, the brokerage is exercising the contract on your behalf, selling shares, and then returning you the difference. A cashless exercise is exercised with margin in your account. And then the shares are given to you, and those shares are held on margin. So a little bit different. Exercise and sell to cover is better. I still think having two contracts, selling one and exercising the other, is the best. As you get to capture some of your IV gains, and you don't have to deal with any of the bullshit surrounding margin. Should JPMorgan have been playing November movement? It's possible, but maybe not. I think it was. They might have bought in then. That Zenko DD is not a super easy read. That's fair. I know that. It's some of the aspects of it I don't even want to dig into. Is there a program that will dictate everything you say on the stream into text so I can read it on the toilet 20 minutes versus rewatching this hour plus stream over and over because I'm way too ADHD to grasp hearing? I would have no idea how to do that. Trace Subway Cup. Take an Adderall. Sit down. Watch the stream. What's up, Girk? I owned you in League. I haven't logged into my League account in over a year. And I also don't play League of Legends. I haven't done that in like 6 years. What do I owe to the pleasure of joining a Dillionaire Hot Tub stream? Nothing. So that 13F was released voluntarily? Essentially, yes. Explain Wave 5, you did a public stream today because people need to know what the fuck is going on. Probably. Yeah. Could this JPM 13F be a trap? Sure. Unlikely, but sure. If it was hedged, I'd be a little more concerned. If we didn't have XRT and Meme and probably others going to the reg show threshold this last week, I'd probably be a little more concerned. If we didn't have gamma exposure coming up, I might be a little more concerned. But all of these bullish signals are lining up, in a way they see those things the same as we do, right? Like, it's obvious that the illiquidity could be sufficient at this point to create a short squeeze. And if we don't, right, like if we just run up and like the next couple days play out as we expect, then nothing changes, right? Hypothetically, if and when the float is locked by DRS and then people start buying options, how would hedgies find real shares to distribute to exercise calls? I mean, I already think they can't. I don't think locking up the float in DRS is necessary to create that issue for them. I think they already cannot provide sufficient shares to hedge, let alone provide sufficient shares for an exercise. And that'll just create a demand on whatever shares are locked or owned. I guess locking up shares in DRS reduces the borrowable shares through the SEC lending program. Um, and, those are having fewer of those means that they can delay less time. But we'll start to see that effect when the borrow rate on GME starts to go up. How close would DFB be to an institutional holder? I mean, if he were to be an institution and not a private investor, then yeah, he would have significantly more shares than most institutions do. Why harder to tell December versus January? Well, because if FOMO kicks in early, we could see the price start to run far sooner, right? Expectations of them trying to price people out of options on Monday, possible. We'll know in the pre-market, Blake. Does JPM change our expected action over the next weeks? It could. Try waiting for the YouTube to add auto subtitles, and I think there are scripts to download the subtitle file from a video. Oh, okay. So the funds getting on the reg show just stopped short hedge from shorting us, is that right? Now they have no defense against the price rising. Less of a defense, yes. I expect XRT has been used quite a bit in the past to maintain price on GameStop. And yes, as more and more ETFs fall onto reg show's threshold list, they lose more and more of their ability to short synthetically and also hedge synthetically. Both, which is very relevant. I heard you were dropping 42K for Fabs at market open. What are your thoughts on your move? I don't know who told you that, but I have all the Jan, Feb, and April positions that I currently intend to purchase already. What are you going to do with your contracts while the price is spiking? I know exercise is the way, but when? I still want to exercise during that peak exposure period in late January. Like that's when I'll be looking to exercise. I mean, I already have like a solid share position, right? Like I'm not concerned with the share position. So I mean, in the near term, when I still expect exposure to remain moderately low, um, I'm just gonna take profits and double down on my further out positions. Is there breaking news from Friday close till now? XRT moved to the threshold. XRT ETF was moved to the threshold list. The meme ETF was moved to the threshold list. JPMorgan announced a big GameStop YOLO publicly and loudly, along with announcing the potential for short squeezes in the market last week. Why does the stock dip before the squeeze? I answered that before, Hacksaw. If you rewind to the part where I'm writing on the screen, you'll see that. How will pre-market activity Monday impact your predictions for Monday's price action? More shorting before a rip, just continuous green candles until 225, etc. The first thing I'll be looking at is pre-market price action, big dilly style, and see what happens in the pre-market. Like if we start running in the pre-market and we open the day at like 180 or something, obviously like things get real fucking bullish real fast, right? Theoretically, that we could trade flat tomorrow. It's the gamma exposure isn't due until when like it can be due at any point through Wednesday. Simon, thanks for becoming a Cornishon, man.
Welcome to Cornishon. Cornishon.
Cornishon. Is there a reasonable price to predict will be over price-wise during the squeeze, or is that completely unknown? It's an unknown. Can you say violent upside potential for me? I'm close. Violent upside potential, glider. We've locked up 20 million in options. Yep. Well, up to 20 million. DRS is a hedge against brokerage collapse. Fucking, if the brokerages collapse, you can't sell out of DRS, right? Computer Share is a transfer agent. They're not a brokerage, right? And so in order to buy and sell securities, they have to act through a brokerage. If all the brokerages crash, you cannot fucking sell out of Computer Share because they're not a broker. So it doesn't really matter either way at that point. Also, if all the brokerages collapse, no one gives a shit about your shares. Like the entire world economy will have collapsed at that point. Everything's valueless. How rare is it for an ETF to get put on reg show? Pretty odd. Given that they don't have an actual float. Very strange. I just read cash settle provides liquidity to the derivatives market. Exercise is the way. Yeah. Exercise is definitely the way. But obviously not possible for retail to exercise every contract in their possession, right? Existential. And the point is every exercise acts as like a tiny margin call against that locked portion of the float. Is the XRT thing significant? Yes. All right, finally caught up in stream. A bit sad. No more speedy. Pi-Fi, though. Happy Sunday, everyone. Thank you, Acer. NyQuil, thank you for $20. I appreciate that. It's very kind of you. Other than ETFs, what other part of the market where we've seen positive pricing from a squeeze? Thinking of the odd SLGG FOMO from a while back. It could be all over the place. DDS is another stock that I would think would be very interesting in the event of a squeeze caused by XRT. Do you plan to average down 27 January 10th? Yes, I do. Any further thoughts on killing the Discord during MOASS? I might just mute everybody. I'm still not sure. Until like the squeeze is over or volatility has calmed down. Nobody should be on there, right? Nobody should be listening to other people during a short squeeze or talking to other people during a short squeeze. You should be managing your position. And you know, the psychological effects of participating in group conversation during that period of time would definitely be detrimental to you selling at your most profitable. You're already going to be dealing with a whole bunch of emotions and you know, participating in, you know, like group conversation like that is just going to exacerbate those emotions. Do you have any things are opening the stream for everyone? Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any expected price for Jan's cycle? Are you thinking all Feb contracts could be exercised 5/10s for the win? Possibly. Yeah, I mean, if we had $1,000, you know, probably long before $1,000, you'd be able to exercise 5/10s because the volatility would just be astronomical at that point, right? Can you make a short DD with what's going on right now? I might. If I have time. I have a very busy day. I'll think about it. How does JP... that's why I'm doing this and opening it to everyone. You know, if people have questions, you can always refer them to this video. T+1 for funds to clear shouldn't be a problem. No, it shouldn't be a problem at all, actually. And you should be able to, as long as you don't have any good faith violations, you should be able to use those funds right away to exercise. What happens in the money calls if the expiry date is during a halt? You lose them. GME is my main squeeze. Thanks, Arod. Also, thank you, Chucky Seki. My custom charts told me if work crosses above the price, GME go boom boom. Yeah, that sounds about right. Based on at least what I saw that you were working on there, Aaron. I'll when I get a chance, I'll try to share some of that with some of the guys on the quant team who are more into the programming side of this, and maybe they'd be interested in helping you or working with you on that. Stock ticker DDR Dance Dance Rev DDS Dillards. So your plan to sell Feb out of the money calls this week is still in mind. I don't have a plan to sell the contracts I hold. So close, just say close Feb out of the money calls. Depending on price action, correct? Yeah, it's absolutely still my plan. Unless I see some dramatic shift in price action, like unless we just like explode over the next couple of days to untold price points and the squeeze begins, I'm sticking with the plan I have, right? Like you don't, you know, throw the baby out with the bathwater just because, you know, someone announced a position. Well, yeah, because you can trade in aftermarket and pre-market. Still think they short the price back down to re-entry from December 27th, early January. Selling Febs this next week. Few weeks feels more risky. It does. I agree, but I don't know how much they'll short it down or if they have the capability without let's see how many more ETFs they burn over the next several days. I think I'm going to try to set up something where we're watching the reg show threshold list for any GME containing ETFs. I'm sure that there's some people that would be interested in setting that up, and then we can, monitor the number of ETFs burned. If enough are burned, then, they can't use ETFs to hedge or short anymore. Then they have to start borrowing real shares. And that's pretty indicative of us moving into a squeeze, which should give us some assistance in timing. But we'll see. Will the unemployment rate go up if people quit their jobs after MOASS? I mean, sure, but like how much? Can Jamie reach 10K or more? It's possible. But I mean, always with it's definitely possible for GameStop. If everything we believe is true, even to half the extent we believe it is, the amount of upward price action isn't really the question. I think the biggest question is, where does government intervention begin? Where do they say enough is enough? We need to protect the stability of the dollar. And that could be, most people psychologically would sell far before, 10K or 100K. Don't get me wrong. Retail has proved these models incorrect over and over and over again this year. But, statistically, the psychology of a price movement of that nature would create a lot of paper hands. So the number of people that realize prices astronomically high would be probably minimal. So you have to weigh that against the potential for damage to the global economic structure. Like if you get 10 million a share for GameStop, but you've destroyed the economy that you can spend that money in, But at the same time, should you hold for 10 million a share? If it keeps going up, fuck yeah. I have GFV issues. Can I fix it by setting my account to margin? I'm not sure. You can just open another account. Unemployment is calculated by those claiming unemployment benefits. Yes. Hold on. I'm trying to find my spot. I just lost it. If AMC is the GME hedge. Wait, hold on. I skipped some stuff, I think. So hopefully the Discord exists in some form for folks to keep in touch post MOASS. Totally understand the rationale to mute it during MOASS. Okay. Can you explain cashless exercise? Yeah, essentially you exercise an option with cash you don't have. Only buying shares to the dollar value it's worth, rather than all shares that the contract is for. Yeah, essentially. Well, that's pretty much it. It'd be cool to plot FTDs on these charts, see if there's any correlation. Yeah, they would know how to do that with you. Would you leave the charts on during MOASS? No, I'm not going to be streaming during MOASS, right? Because I don't want to tie up my bandwidth while I'm executing trades to stream. So you think they will start covering XRT from next week? They should, yeah. Is Fintel data from 11/12/21 or 12/11/21? I believe it's 11/12/21, right? Wait, hold on, let me look at it. Announcements. I don't know. Oh yeah, it's 11/12. Is it true that JPMorgan has 56,490 times more shares than you? Well, I mean, I've told you guys repeatedly, I only have 2 shares of GameStop. I mean, no, I bought some more on the dip. So 5 shares. I have 5 shares of GameStop. What is XRT's news I'm hearing about? It seems big. It was added to the Reg Show threshold list. Yes, I do, Shane. I do expect more people to FOMO in.
Welcome to Cornishan. Cornishan.
Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Daipai. What do you do would be the best to read right now for someone just buying into the stock and wanting to learn about what's going to happen for the next few months? EJS, if you have some knowledge of the situation, I would recommend my DD, the MOASS trilogy, books 1, 2, and 3, to give you some idea of the expected price action over the next couple months and after. You can find the links for those on my Reddit profile. Everyone WeBull offers real-time price for free for 3 months on new accounts. Yes. What prices do you think institutional selling will start to occur? No way to predict that. They'll model it. They'll probably have a range in mind, which they intend to sell, but they may not model it the same way. So hard to say. If you know the extent of their position is really as crazy as we think, then you know they may hold for the squeeze, right? You said at the moment there are not as many options as last January. Do you think this will be compensated by FOMO kicking in again, for example, via Wall Street bets? Sure. I don't know if it needs to be compensated for. So, you know, with our illiquidity, we do not need volume for price improvement. We are, you know, compared to last year, we are far more sensitive to buy pressure due to the wide bid ask spread. And so, you know, it doesn't take a lot of volume to drive the price up. November 3rd is a great example. You know, we went up $50 on 3.5 million, basically buy volume. Sub sent to you, had it made. A friend of mine made it for me. Trey Subway Cup. He wanted me to start a merch store and gave it to me as a sample, and then I never started a merch store. He's not happy about it. What could we do with my Feb 18 200C if it runs to 400 levels? I don't have cash. Can only wait for expiration and cash settle. What are my options? Look, you can call your brokerage and exercise and sell to cover, which means they'll exercise the contract and sell the requisite shares in order to cover the cost of the exercise. Pickleman, I suppose you have 3,000 shares in our past short-term capital gains. Would you hypothetically sell them to... Actually, only 500 of my shares are past short-term capital gains. The ones I bought last year. Everything I bought in February is still are still short-term capital gains. Also, the options that I've been exercising since Feb are short-term capital gains as well from the date I exercise them. So when you exercise an option, it doesn't matter how long you've held that option for. When you exercise it and those shares come into your possession, that creates a taxable event. And so those are, you know, from that day for 1 year, those are considered short-term gains. Yeah, and if MOASS really happens, right, and like we're going into, you know, tens of thousands of dollars a share, and like this is what kicks it off, and you know, or we're seeing hundreds of thousands of dollars a share, and you're just carrying a bunch of call contracts, right? You can just sell a share and exercise a contract, right, or exercise multiple contracts. So you know that's always an option if the price just keeps going up. Trading one share for 99 is perfectly acceptable. Why are we trading so flat? I don't know. I appreciate everything you're doing to educate us and keep the community up. And the community, keep up the good work. Absolutely. Thank you, Nostradamus. I appreciate that. How many shares do you think we'll need for life-changing tendies if played right? Some. I mean, don't expect to become a billionaire when you're sitting on 2.5 shares, right? Like that's just fucking ignorant. I don't know why I see that spread around a lot. And like, yeah, you're gonna make a decent amount of money on a very minimal investment if you have like X shares. Are you gonna have intergenerational wealth? Maybe, depending on what you do with that capital after you get it, right? Like if you blow it on hookers in 10 days, you're fucked. Or hookers and Lambos. But like, you know, if you spend it wisely and invest it wisely, you'll be able to, you know, take that large increase in capital and grow it. And that, you know, takes discipline and knowledge, but that's how, you know, you're gonna have to get your intergenerational wealth, probably. I mean, even if you sold at $1 million a share, it's not really intergenerational wealth, right? Especially if you don't manage it well. Most lottery winners go broke in like 2 to 5 years, or bankrupt in 2 to 5 years. So something to consider, you know. Be smart with your money. Don't blow it. But I definitely do see a lot of people are like, I have 3 shares and I'm going to be worth $50 million. And it's probably not. Will you be worth a lot more than, you know, $450? Probably. I know GME has the potential to go to 100K or more, but I am worried that the US government interfered GME stock can cause it to trigger a market crash or an economic crisis. I went too far. No, I agree with you. There is a point at which, you know, it becomes, you know, GameStop versus stability of the global economy. And yeah, I mean, there's going to be unknowns, you know, going into MOASS. We can't predict, you know, when the government would want to step in, if they would want to step in, if they, you know, and you know, if they did, you know, they would, and it came to that point, they would be lauded by foreign governments for doing so, right? Because, you know, ultimately the US government's not going to risk their economic position to give us all a bunch of money. And so somewhere between where we are now and that point, you know, there's a absolute fuck ton of money to be made. One issue I see with selling a contract to exercise another is that if they are hedging correctly, they'll deleverage a now high delta contract. So the pressure is lower than exercise. Sell to cover 2 calls. Is that right? Dope of you to open the stream to all. Well, no, because a lot of the reason this works, Dave, of the Pigeonwheel Daves, is that we know that they're not hedging properly. Right? So if your contract goes up and say it has a delta of 0.1, you know, they may be hedging like 0.33. right? So, if you're selling this one to exercise this one, you may only be netting the market 33 shares and getting, 77 plus profits. Because we know there isn't the liquidity in the underlying for them to hedge properly. So everyone's always like talking about how like, oh, they're not hedging, it doesn't matter. Or it's like we don't want them to hedge, right? We want them to be exposed to the loss on those naked calls. If they hedge, then they're neutral and then thus risk adverse, and we don't blow up their margin. But A, we know it's difficult for them to hedge. B, we know they have an incentive not to hedge properly. And C, we're holding contracts that force them to do that. And so it's a fun game. Yeah, the Fintel data became available as of yesterday. What does this guy mean if I spend it on hookers and Lambos? How can you visualize institutional selling on the charts? High volume and a plateau, perhaps? I imagine a breakout here is important. Institutional selling? Yeah. Massive dips. Massive dips, probably into halts if institutions are dumping huge numbers of shares out onto the market. I don't know if institutions would hold for forced liquidity or forced liquidation, but they might. I would expect most institutional selling to occur during like that FOMO period of super, super high volatility. Are your mods here or just me? The one here every day making FOMO songs and helping the chat. Visceral, you're not unappreciated. It's just that I don't want to mod anybody. 1 million a share would be enough for a lifetime for me. I can't have kids. Nice. I mean, you could, right? There's a lot of kids that other people didn't want that you could take care of. That'd be a cool thing to do. Because they don't have anyone. If I sell a couple of shares in order to exercise my call with IBKR, can I use the cash from the sold shares to immediately exercise? Yes, you can, but you may not be able to sell the exercised shares for like T+2. I have 2 calls. I'm set for life. You have to remember, like, if hold on, if we go to like option strat, right? You know what? Fuck it. Let's go different one. So let's hold on. Nope, that's the wrong one. There we go. Boop. All right, so GME right now. So you were to buy what? Let's give the Feb 510 gang some love on this calculation, right? So you buy a Feb 510 at the ask, one contract, and the stock goes to 1,000 to $10,000. You're looking at like Jesus, percent change in IV over 100, right? Well, I think it's maxed out its calculations. let's say 1,500 to 8,000. Oh, no, it doesn't want to go that high. But you know, like it's at a test of 7,000. Yeah, you're looking at. It's not gonna let me manually input IV, but you know, you're looking at like $122,000 per contract. So that's cool. It's just like an idea of how out of control the prices on those contracts would get. And that's only at $7,000, right? You know, at $100,000, it's 100, or at $700,000 or whatever. That's like 1,000 times that. Can you do sell to cover when your contract hits a certain amount, right? Yes. If your contract is double the value of its strike, so you know if your contract is 200C and the value of the contract is like 400.00 or 200.00, no, it's just the value of your contract, value of your strike. So you see all this recent squeeze talk really just be gaslighting and trying to get people to sell if they let the price run a little bit. It could be, yeah, an attempt to break open liquidity, but I don't think anyone has any intention of selling, right? And then like if they're just gonna run the price hard and people own options, they can just scalp that for gains and not sell any of their shares, right? Like shares are for MOASS, options are for profits. But you know, you can turn options into shares. Jack Vort, thank you for the pickle. I appreciate that. Are you expecting higher than 100K be foolhardy? Not necessarily, but it'll be interesting. You're holding Feb 200s and the stock is hitting 500 and 1K a share at the end of January. Do you just go ahead and exercise the Febs at that point to cause more illiquidity and buy pressure? Yeah. Yeah, because it just fucks them even harder, right? Like I think that's how we break that forced liquidation threshold is through exercising. That's how we turn, you know, the volatility squeeze into, you know, like an actual gamma squeeze. Which, you know, if that reaches high enough prices, an actual short squeeze. You do lose the remaining money in premiums when you exercise. That's why I like the idea of selling one, like that 2-for-1 thing, because you can sell one, right, and then you still make 50% of that additional premium and then exercise the other, right? So you're still making 50% of, you know, the IV, because you lose the same amount of IV here, like the premium increase. So like your IV gains over here are lost because you're exercising. But you know that by selling this contract to exercise this one, you do capture some of those gains. Thank you, Carl, for posting the updated TradingView chart. If you guys want to check that out, Carl put it in the chat. I mean, there'll always be a demand at the bid for contracts, Poops, because you know, you may have to shave off some of that IV in order to sell your contract. Like you may not be able to sell it near the ask or something, but you know, there'll always be a demand to buy those shares cheaper, especially if the stock is continuing to run up, right? PP poo poo. Yes. Good job, Carl. No, I don't want any 30-something children. They're not cute. What's important about XRT getting on the NYSE threshold list? It cuts off an avenue, a big avenue of their shorting. Hedging forces them to find synthetics elsewhere, limiting the pool from which they can draw those synthetics. You already answered this question. Is a fake squeeze to 1,000 possible? I don't think so. It gets out of control too fast. First of all, smaller short positions blowing up. The amount of FOMO that it would generate, not only from retail but institutions, it's just too big of a risk. I'm at the end of hiding out after 2 years thanks to one tweet, GameStonk, and everyone on Reddit. You're the best. Thanks a dillion. Thank you, Shane. You can type the IV change manually. It would be ridiculous. I don't even know what to predict, right? Like, what, 1,000, 2,000% IV if we're driving up into those prices? Given the number of shares that would be gobbled up by FOMO hedging than everything else, wouldn't institutional selling, even at bulk, just be a moot point? Kind of, yeah. I think the share lockup through retail is more than sufficient to continue the upward price action. Is there more money to be made? I mean, it's just gonna be 400% more than the price I showed, so $400,000 a contract. Is there more money to be made with calls than shares during MOASS? Not necessarily. Once you get near the top, calls are a little trickier, right? Like, if the price starts to stabilize at the peaks of whatever the short squeeze reaches, it could be harder to get rid of calls. You may have to sell them for less than their intrinsic value. You also have to sell 100 shares at once. And that's another reason exercise is beneficial, especially on the way up, is that when you reach the peaks, you can break those 100 shares apart up into several sell orders and, average out a better sell rate than you would if you were just selling your shares in blocks of 100. My wife is a nurse in labor delivery, and so many kids are taken from degen parents. We want to help. Kids are innocent. We must prevent Kenny G 2.0s from happening. Can you type in more than 100%? Yeah, I know you can. Everyone keeps saying that. Why? You keep asking why it's important that XRT got on the threshold list. I answered. If you have contracts you just want to sell, you don't have to ask questions multiple times. Just make sure you tag me the first time. If I miss it, then ask again. If you have contracts that you want to sell instead of exercise during MOASS, will there be buyers? It can be difficult in the peaks, Trash. It's going to depend. I mean, yes, there will always be a buyer, but you may not be able to sell at the contract's true value, right? You might have to shave off like a significant chunk of those IV gains in order to sell that contract. But someone will buy it, right? Someone will want to buy, 100 shares at $250 or $510 or $950, depending on how high we go, right? Why the hell is everyone so afraid of the government stepping in all of a sudden? I mean, it's always been a concern. It's always something that we should consider, right? I've always considered it something that should be considered. I mean, it was my entire reason for telling people who believed in an infinity pool that they were fucking idiots, right? I don't think that's a shift in narrative. Do you think Jimmy will pull their shares off the stock market and go to blockchain? Unlikely. Thanks for all your efforts. You have likely changed thousands of lives for the better through your metered patient delivery of consistent edutainment info. Praise egos and VWAP. Thank you, Maximus Dilymus Meridius, aka Boofus Rainwright. I'm still streaming till forced liquidation. You got it. What has to happen for higher strikes to open up for Feb and April? The price has to go up. 350 really to open up that 900 side of the chain if they need it open for their variant swaps. If MOASS happens, do you think we'll be able to sell options, or will that be impossible? No, it'll be possible. People will buy them. What would you do if you only had one option contract? Exercise it, break it up into shares, sell those shares, break those shares up into different sell orders. Try to average my exit out over the peaks. Well, what's the final date from the 17th? The T plus 13 kicks in. I mean, the T plus 13 is irrelevant, right? Because it's first in, first out. So they only have to cover the fails for the 13th on the 14th day. Or the 17th on the 14th day, but let's see. 13 trading days. January 5th. So January 5th is the first day that they should have to begin covering fails from Friday. But they don't have to cover all the fails due, right? They just have to cover the fails from T-Day. So that guy who wrote that DD about like us blowing up on January 6th is just, it is his entire concept of how reg show threshold works is false. I think the mods should do something about that, but I don't know if they have. How old are you? Old enough. The medium ETF is already on reg show threshold. I know. I posted about it in the Discord. Just tuned in. Has anything changed for the coming week's expectations? I mean, volatility can pick up. There could be a catalyzing effect from these reg show threshold lists inclusions. I'm sticking to the plan, right? Because the market mechanics don't change. That was one of the reasons for writing the DD that I did, was that it tracks the market mechanics that affect the price action and ignores catalysts. Catalysts can have an effect. They can create a short squeeze, but if you're buying far dated contracts, you shouldn't give a shit. Yeah, they've been shorting to the max, and they are running out of synthetic share creation options. How does Pelosi track work on the back end of a Plymouth? I have no idea what you mean. John Jimmy, thank you for becoming a Dillionaire, man. Hit me up on the Discord. I'll get you added after the stream to the country club. Appreciate the support. Just a little so I can continue to talk over it. If MOASS happens, do you think we'll be able to sell options, or will that be impossible? No, I don't think it'll be impossible, but I do think you'll have to sell them closer to the bid or under the bid in order to get a fill. Do you accept other institutions to jump in? Do you expect other institutions to jump in after JPM's info release? Yes. What was my first buy-in? I bought in first last November. I bought 500 shares and some options. I bought more in Jan, and then after I sold off my options contracts on the run, I bought in February. I bought another small position on the flash crash in March just because I had a standing order and it filled. And then pretty much since then, I've just exercised in the money contracts as I've had capital to do it. I think I've developed a crush on Persians. What should I do? Just anytime you're feeling that, blast yourself in the face with some Drakkar Noir. And like just like you would a dog that's misbehaving or a cat, like, and then that should cure you of that issue pretty quick. Do you think Matt Kors and Andrew Money have prepared their resignation letters? I have no idea. What effect? Shit, where did it go? What effect would a suspension on Jimmy have? What kind of action would be expected after resuming from a week plus pause? Who the fuck knows? No one knows. I dip. People are scared a week to sit there and think about it and just scare people. So, but that doesn't necessarily mean the dip will be sustained, right? Like it could just keep going up right after that. So how high do you think the price will go this week? I mean, my conservative prediction is still like between 200 and 225, right? We're entering this week at a very low price point. We'll see. Obviously, we could go higher than that, but it seems best to have a conservative point at a lower resistance. So that way, especially people that are playing shorter dated calls don't get burned in the expectations of higher amounts. If we break 250, that's significant. If we break it on volume and continue to push up, then there is a gap, like 270 or 280 to 290, something like a big gap up, and that could bring us up to three. But right now I'm looking at 225 as like a solid resistance. If we blow through it and continue up, awesome. If we don't, be prepared for that. Do you believe deep in the money Jan calls of the 50 and 60, 100 are held by institutions or retail? Probably both. Does RC know who is short and long as an insider? No. How do I get into the disc fam? What? Do you see more institutions buying in after? Oh, the Discord? The link's down below in the description. If it's not there, the link is in any of my other like daily streams. Like if the one here doesn't work, it might not, but it should. Did you use institutions buying in after JPM institutional FOMO? Yes. Can you talk some of the Feb, March, and April calls you have invested in? I have a lot of strikes, but from January starting at 160 out through February as high as 350, or out through April, I'm sorry, as high as 350. I have April 200s, Feb 180s, January 160s. Those are my like kind of, I intend to hold those through any significant run, and exercise. Those will be the contracts that I intend to exercise, I think. Anything above 200, between 200 and, say for January, 200 and 950, I kind of intend to sell on this run. Anything above 200 in Feb, I intend to sell on this run. The Aprils at 200, I will hold. I'm not going to sell those, no matter what happens this week. And that's just to give like an idea of where my position is, but it's kind of gotten to a point where it's a little hard to explain the full extent of it, just because there's a lot of contracts. So, but yeah, January I have strikes from 160 to 350, or 160 to 950, but the cutoff is 350 for potential intrinsic value, and then the 950s are simply an IV play. For February, I have calls from 180 to 350, and April I have 200s. Virus pours allowed in today. I like you guys, and I wanted to talk about this. It seems important. After forced liquidation, what happens? What do you think the minimum you think the stock could hit? Just what we know already. Yeah, I mean, forced liquidations, if they occur, would drive the price astronomically. There's no way to figure it out, right? Like people have like talked about it, and they're like, oh, it's going to go to this price, or it's going to go to that price, or I'm holding till this or holding till that. And like, ultimately, any attempt to predict the extent and range of a black swan event, I told someone last night, is like trying to predict the weather with a stethoscope. Like you can't do it. It's impossible. Can you please explain if it's better by Jan 23 950s at 10ish or April 22 510s at 9ish, and why? Probably the April's is like they have a better chance of realizing intrinsic value than the January 23s do, at least in the short term. If we don't MOASS right now, then the 510s will, you'll get more of them because they're cheaper, right? So you'll have more leverage, and the improvement on IV and intrinsic value on a big run would be probably more than although the Jan 23 950s have a lot of Vega, so they're more sensitive to the changes in IV. It's actually a good question. I guess if you're playing IV, the Jan 23s are better, but if you're playing potential for intrinsic value, then the Aprils are better. Are you going to buy your shares back before or after end of year calls? Well, buy my calls back? I don't have any calls that I've sold currently. I had some naked puts that I sold when we bottomed out this week, but those expired on Friday. So I don't have any like opened call I don't have any call positions that I need to close. I don't have any sell to opens that I currently. So you say that an infinity squeeze is not possible? I mean, if you can describe to me how, I'd love to hear it. No more until June meeting. Notice of split. Seems like horseshit. I don't think RC has any intention on splitting the stock. Can you exercise and sell to cover on WeBull? Tricky. Somebody's told me they've done it, but I don't believe them. I mean, any options I'm holding in WeBull, I'll probably just cash settle. Their customer service is atrocious, and the only person I've heard of successfully executing an exercise and sell to cover through them said that they called BNY Mellon, who is the operating bank for Webull, and exercised through their options desk, but I've no experience doing that, so I wouldn't even know where to begin. And his only proof was screenshots, so I don't even know if it was real. The real question I need answered is, will Moonwind get assigned this quarter? If he tries selling covered calls, probably. What do you think of the chances for a bear market next week, dragging GME down, giving the short hedge funds another chance to cover short and ploy with another psyops play like November to get shake options? I don't know why they would want to shake options next week, right? Like this was the week for shaking contracts. Next week is just exposure. Is MOASS an if or when? Oh, fuck. It's an if. Like the idea of a mother of all short squeezes is definitely an if. A lot of things have to align for that to occur, right? I mean, they've stabilized the position throughout the entire year. It'd be ignorant to ignore that. I mean, is there a high likelihood of a short squeeze on GameStop in the coming months? Yes. Does that likelihood diminish throughout the rest of the year? Also, yes. Can a short squeeze be catalyzed by GameStop's actions? Possibly. But, always, there's never a guarantee of anything. If you were poor, rolling, trying to build capital, and could only afford a few contracts, can you talk about how you would approach at a macro level? I think I've gone over this previously a bunch of times, but yeah, if I was a poor and rolling, I would have tried to have picked up this dip this last week because it was extreme. I would, be looking to sell somewhere on this spike through this period, and then looking to buy back in somewhere before we start to go up again from, ETF exposure in early January. And then, really risky but possible is maybe an entry here somewhere. It might not be cheaper, but you may save money on theta. The only issue is that IV got driven up a lot through this window last year. So this window isn't really the best entry. So there's really only, aside from the entries, made over the last couple days, there's really only one other good opportunity for entry, I think, and that's through this window. After that, that's kind of it. You can try to keep some free capital, this week and pick up some febs here because they'd be very, very cheap, theta wise, but they may not be cheap in terms of, IV and intrinsic value. So, but more contracts may open up, if we're driving up, into the $300 range, there may be more contracts available in Feb and April at like 800 or 950, right? So you may be able to pick up more out of the monies before that last big spike. Dear Matt Kors, I know you're watching, and I want you to know I plan on having you as my +1 to the Gherkin meet and greet post MOASS. Government is worried that too much money is going to people who are selling the shares due to short hedge funds' irresponsibility and recklessness. Then short hedge funds should be punished, not retail playing by the rules. Sure. Okay. Because see, this is the problem I have with that kind of train of thought. Is that, if everything is as corrupt as people think it is, then you can't expect the system to then turn around and work in your benefit, right? You have to assume that the system, if truly completely corrupt and the system is broken and does not work, you cannot then expect the system to work to your advantage, right? You have to just continue to assume that the system is corrupt completely. Is your Jimmy position held in your profits yet, or have you not secured your original investment yet? What? What are you talking about? Ask that a different way, KO, because I have no idea what you're referring to. How do you plan on selling your exercise shares if you have to wait T+2 for cash? You don't have to wait T+2 to use that cash to exercise. Immediately upon selling a contract, you should be able to use that cash to exercise the other one. It may not be settled in your account, but as you can still use that cash to exercise the other contract. If you sell the shares from that exercise in T+2 before those funds settle, you'll get a good faith violation. During MOASS, do you have any opinion on which exchange to sell through? For example, Fidelity gives one of several options. I think one of them is IEX. I don't care. Is there any truth to calls? IEX is generally pretty illiquid and volatile, so that's up to you. You said you plan to hold Jan's below 200 strike to potentially exercise. I'm thinking if you were poor with 1 to 3 contracts for Jan 180s, you'd be more apt to roll. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I can only speak to my own position, Patrick. I can't speak to yours. I don't know what it is. I don't know how much money you have. I don't know any of that shit. That's why I'm not a financial advisor, because I have no insight into your own personal position. I can only tell you what I intend to do, and you can do with that information what you will. But what if you had a sealed jar? Scoutcat now. How do you feel about 350 calls for Jan 2023? They're pretty far out. I mean, I guess you could. I don't see the point in buying them that far away. You're paying. I guess you're paying for IV, like IV sensitivity is the best part of buying those. But it's expensive. You're paying for a lot of theta that you're probably not going to use. Unless you're like that one guy who held his contracts through like several run ups for no reason. Yeah, why not? DJ Datrix. You see a post about GME being able to take Loop as payment now. Wouldn't the buyer be responsible to cap gains tax and sales tax? I have no idea. I'm not an accountant. Thanks from a poor, deplorable person. I'm not homeless anymore. Awesome, Shane. Congratulations. If this thing blows up and we're all rich, please check out the FIRE movement. Keep your money and live off the earnings from investments. I mean, that's what you do when you're rich. I'm confused. What do you expect? I didn't realize that was a movement. I thought that's just what you did when you had a lot of money. Uh, Infinity pool theory is just a super smooth brains reading shorts have potentially infinite losses and running with their derpy brains. Possibly. I mean, I understand the concept. It's just that there's no real world scenario where that plays out. Which brokers do you have GME options with? Oh, fuck, a bunch. IBKR, Webull, Vanguard. What is the reg show list? The reg show threshold list? It's a list where stocks are placed, tickers are placed if they have reached a significant number of fails until that situation is corrected. You could also just Google that. Do you see the post about GME being able to take loop? I don't care. I was asking, have you been able to pull out your original capital investment to the point where you're now playing with house money? Oh, I mean, all of my GME position is house money. KO. Um, yeah. Thank you, Patrick. Uh, do you think the market rules will get changed to prevent retail from cornering shorty like this ever again, or rules to prevent the abuse of shorting by them? Both. I think there'll be some systemic changes in order to prevent widespread naked shorting, at least through ETFs like we're seeing here. But I also think retail will be punished. I think there will be a political push to drive retail out of the capital markets, and minimize their ability to drive price action. Probably by cutting off retail derivatives participation. Got to roll to a meeting. Yeah, no problem. Have a good one, Dominic Joseph. You're acting out or wiring out. I just wanted to let you know that I'm here. Thanks, Who's Coffin. Appreciate it. What would be the ideal moment for positive news from GameStop if you look at the fail cycle chart? Oh, I would want to see it right here between January 10th and 25th. If they were to announce a catalyst, that would be the ideal time. Complete off topic, but I just hit 370 max squat for the first time. Congrats, dude. What are your cost basis? I haven't done the math on it in a while because it's weighted really heavily with options. Salik, but under 100. When will U.S. investors with 180 cost basis be rich? Where's the squeeze? Um, like, what do you mean? Like, when will the squeeze happen? We don't know. There's no way to predict that. We know the moment at which it is most likely to squeeze. I think my theory at least indicates the moment in which it is most likely to squeeze. How much is premium right now? Expensive? Oh shit, I'm all caught up. What's up, Lawrence of Arabia? Some red flags to watch out for in our post MOASS financial advisors. Anybody that doesn't get paid on commission. That's a big one. Always test the waters with any fiduciary, give them a small amount of money to manage, watch how they do it, then give them more, you know, as they build, trust over time. Never leave all your money in any one person's control. Is some pretty good advice. If they limit retail's trading abilities, you can just become an accredited investor to circumvent that, right? Yeah. I'm at the gym right now. There's old Jack Vascular dude who's just spitting image of Ken Griffin. I think he's training to short the stock with his bare hands. Is that there's a pun there. You could have put bare hands with EAR. Can you talk about the .02 contract we talked about today? Thanks, mate. Yeah, Marco, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, man. You're trying to derive arbitrage from a volume dump at the end of the day. You're not a high frequency trader. There's no profit there. Your orders will never fill. If you're buying a contract 10 minutes before market close and then trying to sell it at a higher amount into market close, unless the price of the stock is running, you're not going to fill. No one wants to buy like fucking 10-second to expiry contracts. The volume you're seeing is not necessarily buy volume, right? You're just seeing volume is just a volume. It does not indicate buy or sell. And you're likely seeing volume dumps for other options exchanges as you're most likely a retail investor and only watching one of many options exchanges. I assume GFE is watching right now. I'm planning to invest more. Give him one sentence of DD to help with his millions. There's no real shares to hedge with. Why do you think DFE is mute? I don't know. Maybe he commented on the stream the other day. No one knows. Can someone explain what JPMorgan has done or is doing or send a link? It's in the announcements channel on the Discord tray. NFA, hypothetically, would you as a newly MOASS Dillionaire handle your funds? Also a lot of small amount to money manager and set the rest in Vanguards or ETFs. Thank you for your gurkiness. I mean, obviously I don't really trust ETFs right now. Maybe after, some sort of correction in the market, I would probably hold the funds and maybe buy into some cryptos, hold the rest liquid until I saw the correction I expect to take place in the markets occur. And then, diversified portfolio, REITs, real estate, mutual funds, ETFs, equities, crypto, pretty standard, aiming for 10+% a year is probably sufficient depending on how much capital is initially invested. Maybe dividend stocks. I don't like them, but you could. What if Robinhood takes away the buy button again? Won't that affect GME on all brokers? No. Only if people cash settle their options. Why the fuck are people still using Robinhood? It's an $80 billion fund, and you're going to trust it to handle, and fucking GameStop's worth more than Robinhood's assets under management at like, $1,000 a share, right? 62 billion. No, so like $1,500 a share, and GameStop's worth more than Robinhood's assets under management. Like, why the fuck would anybody trust that company to handle their money? DRS sentiment is disappointing here in this community. I'm saddest. I recommend looking into broker legalities. Nordic countries require by law that shareholders register their thousands of shares. Yeah, I mean, there some countries that you live in, your shares are automatically registered as per the laws of that country, especially in Europe. Depends which European country you live in. Look up your local stuff. I'm sorry you feel that way, Koala Hugger, but I feel like we've had this argument in the past, and you really didn't provide me with any sufficient information to prove your thesis on DRS. I'm still open to hearing that, but beyond what I've said is bullish about DRS, which is, that it creates illiquidity and possibly increases the effective FTDs. If there's much risk with 121,950, given how cheap they are, if you buy at Monday at open and sell by Wednesday close, seems like you won't lose much theta, and there's not much intrinsic value anyhow. This is true. I mean, you'll lose some. You'll lose, if the price drops, you'll lose a lot, right? Because you'll lose what little intrinsic value there is. Missed the app, but the question was, why did it work with 20 contracts and why won't it work with 100 or 500? I mean, somebody may have needed to buy them to hedge. I'm assuming that you had some success attempting to trade that arbitrage, but you're not a high frequency trader. You don't have a dedicated fiber line into the market. You will get front run. You will not get ideal fills. The higher you up that volume, the more likely you are to fail that strategy. If you could create an algo that does it on multiple assets at once at a minimum amount of trades, you could probably scalp premiums that way, but you would still want a dedicated line, millisecond connection to the market. Neil Martin, welcome to Dillionaires. Thank you so much for the membership, dude. I appreciate it. Hit me up on the Discord. I'll get you added to the country club after the stream. What's the deal with all the Fidelity hate over at SS recently? I don't know. They reported a bunch of shares available to borrow, and then people wanted to shoot the messenger. Do you expect FOMO to kick in early this week on the news or after the dip? It could kick in on the news. I don't really expect a dip this week. We might see one after the exposure is played out, but I kind of expect us to do some upward price action for the next couple days.
Let's get it. We're not a cult, yo. Just some pickle themes.
I responded your opinion, but look at FINRA Rule 3240 suggested by Monster Buddy over here and read the bullet points. I've read them. What about it? Thank you, Marco. No problem, man. There's hate on all brokers because many people believe the brokers equal the shorts. Fidelity has sudden 12 million shares appearing there some days ago, so that was fuel for SS. Yeah, I mean, I understand that sentiment, Long Dancing, but at the same time, like, they just have an automated reporting system, right? And the fact that they didn't flag it, I think, is just lends credibility where others think it takes it away. Like, they didn't have to report that data to us. If they were actively monitoring or gave a shit, they wouldn't have reported that data to us, right? And given us any insight into that. I think as far as I can tell, Fidelity has acted in, fairly good stead this entire time. Their, shares available to borrow have not really changed the average. So that means that the entities lending those shares, have continued to lend them, and they haven't really been lending additional shares from people that, didn't want their shares lent. They've facilitated transfers to DRS quickly and with little confusion for the people that have chosen to DRS. They didn't fight back. They didn't, delay transfers for days and days on end like some other brokerages did. I honestly, I think Fidelity's done a pretty decent job given their position. For sure, Marco. IBKR question: does anyone know why we can only see up to 510 calls for Feb 18? Is that all that is open? Yes. It clearly states the pathway for share lending and equity borrowing. Yeah, and I told you they're not borrowing the available equity currently. Okay, I'm confused about what you're referring to now. If Fidelity were lending out your GR shares, I would have decreased the lending amount over time. Yeah, and that average of like 3 million shares in Fidelity, some are, the number is down, but only in the last week significantly, and that's because we know, they're borrowing. The borrow rate went up. I'm not. Um, it's also just hard to have a conversation with YouTube chat, right? Because people are character limited, so it's hard to have like a fair and equitable debate with anybody. I mean, if brokers are lending the shares, they're going to be recalling them and then selling them, right? I'm going to post a really in-depth TA on Reddit about my charts. Hopefully it clears up what the data is telling us. And I'm studying the fundamental geometry behind it, and it's really telling. Awesome. I will be interested in reading that, Aaron. Will Korova, would SS be more receptive to options if you stressed Feb calls instead of rolling November, December calls? I mean, that's just an options, like a strategy that is available to people that do not have a ton of capital to leverage out in February, right? Like there has to be options for other people, and there are. Like I can't just dismiss the high risk plays and like pretend like they don't exist, right? It's better to tell people, how they work and, warn them of the risk, but at least they're going into those high risk plays slightly informed, as opposed to me just talking about Feb and nothing else. I mean, the last time everyone got burned in November, right? But not everyone got burned. Some people went into that assuming the risk and took profits. Um, I almost got burned, and I had in the money calls, and like I barely got out of those in time to maintain my initial investment. I think I made like fucking nothing. It was like I barely made anything on the run in November. It was unexpected. We never saw any significant volume come in. The price just tanked. They'd never hedged that volatile event before, and so we didn't really know how that was going to play out. But some people did make money, right? And for those people, they now have larger positions, and you can't ignore talking about that to the benefit of those who just don't understand what they're doing in the first place. The next Ryan Cohen tweet is going to be big, or it'll just be another poop emoji. I heard you're not trading crypto. Out of curiosity, what crypto tokens interest you the most for long-term holdings? I've heard some pretty bullish shit recently about Cardano, Algo. I like. I have some LRC. I own a bunch of F from a friend of mine who was a miner like way back, and I've been too scared to sell any of it because I got burned on Bitcoin by selling when it hit 10. And so I'm forever afraid to sell F at any price, which, is probably stupid. I should probably, sell when it runs really hard and try to average down after the fact, but I haven't done that yet. Those are the ones primarily. I have a bunch of HNT. One of the viewers in here has written some DD on it, and I really like the potential for it. I don't know how it'll play out, but there's some IoT like mesh network things that look like they could subvert the current communications systems monopoly on FCC like airspace. And so is it FCC FTC? No, the guys who do the broadband shit. I think it's FCC. I can't remember. Anyway, most of all of that is locked up by like Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, FTC. Thanks. And so being able to subvert that and allow carriers onto another sub network would be huge. I sold 147 at $10. Ouch. Am I wrong for wanting to buy puts after next week's little squeeze to take advantage of the gains before MOASS? I mean, you can try. It's risky. It may trade flat. It traded flat last year through this window, right? There wasn't significant downside. It may do that again, especially without a lot of available synthetic borrow locations. Their only options really to drive the price down without borrowing real shares are through ETFs and through bona fide market making, right? So they either need to buy high delta puts, or they need to short through ETF creation. And since they're kind of tapping those out currently on this dip, it's definitely possible that we'll see some stability through this period of time. As I don't think they have that many shares left to borrow. They can try to tank it. They don't have a lot of exposure, so I think it'd be smart of them to take advantage of that window. But it's hard to say for certain. I mean, last year you can see their last ditch effort to short directly before the run on these FTDs, right? They did one last ditch effort to drive the price down, and then it ran. So I expect they try to do that again, but we'll see. But don't they have 13 days until the reg show ETF are unavailable? Yeah, but they're being watched, and then they're doing it through something that's being watched. It's not ideal. Who's the custodian for Roth IRA shares? It's a good question. I'm not sure how those are actually handled. As far as whose street name they're registered under, like are they registered under your name or like your brokerages? I'm not entirely sure. I know Roth shares are very lent very often, and so people use share lending as a way to profit off their holdings. So I'd imagine that they could lend Roth shares, with your permission. Can you see the y-axis on your chart? It cropped off. Oh yeah, I mean it's irrelevant, right? Because I mean this is just last year's price action scaled, but this is like $47.52 so we really have no idea though. This is just last year's price action logarithmically scaled to the current price point, right? So it is in no way representative of what prices we will see, right? Because so many things are different about GameStop now. First of all, our potential for upside is much, much stronger. The stock is way more liquid. The stock can go up a lot more on much less volume. Stream should have been over 10 minutes ago, but I've carried it on for a few more minutes to help everyone out. So I will try to get a DD I want to write tonight pushed out. I think there's we have a significant number of things pointing to an incoming short squeeze, and I want to make note of that. So I will try to push one out. If I don't, it's just because I got tied up doing other things, didn't have time. But if it does come out, it'll come out late tonight. Maybe after midnight by the time I get it published. They're registered under the broker's books. Yeah, so CS requires IRA shares to be held under the custodian other than the broker. The DTCC, such as Ally. It doesn't mean they are lended. It means they can be lended. Or can be lent. Or, you know, and even that's a confusing way of stating it, Monster Buddy. They can be used as a locate to facilitate the lending of a share. Yeah, I definitely plan on dumping my higher cost basis Febs on this run. Dave of the Pigeon Whale Daves. Out of curiosity, how much sleep on average do you get? Like 3 to 4 hours a night, usually. I think last night I got almost 5, but now I just feel super groggy. Are you a human or alien? Human. Senator Gaming. Steely Dan, thank you so much for coming to Dillionaire. I like some of your music. Were you able to get a new espresso machine? No, I still haven't even picked up the grinder that I bought 4 months ago. They actually called me about it this morning. Thank you, Salmonella. I appreciate it. No worries, Monster Buddy. Is there a point where a company like GameStop, anticipating great growth, sees their stock price 33% lower than last market dilution of 225, decide to do a buyback? It's possible. I'm not saying a buyback's out of the question, but unlikely. Unlikely, especially with their current revolving credit line. I don't think that would happen.
Just some pickle fiends, fuckers, not a cult, no. Like them AMC suckers, not a cult.
Take mine. Between Vanguard, Schwab, and Fidelity, which one would you choose for options? Easiest, most reliable exercising? Oh, I would say like Fidelity is probably easiest for reliable exercising, or Schwab. Vanguard for reliability. You know, their archaic computer system really lends itself to high volatility events. It's able to handle a lot of traffic before it has issues. But when it does have issues, it takes a while for it to come back up. So you have to weigh those. Are you one of the few people who need very little sleep? I don't know. Really FT Marketplace. What was your special birthday meal? You mentioned way back that you have a special meal on your birthdays. I'm just curious. Oh, what did I have this year? I didn't have it this year. Usually I make myself eggplant parmesan and eat an entire tray of it like a big fat ass. It's not pineapple pizza. Is it possible hedge funds don't care about their FTDs on ETFs? They definitely do. Look at the panic that ensued after BBWI announced their share buyback, and they covered all of their ETF FTDs that were due the next day immediately at market open. Oh my heavens, I missed the whole stream. It's okay. It'll be a VOD. You guys can check it out in the unlocked members only channel after this goes down. MOASS, I don't know. We'll see. I'm excited though. I think JPMorgan's announcement and confirmation of, you know, this ETF FTD, or this ETF synthetic borrowing occurring, and proof of that via the reg show threshold list lends a lot of credence to my theory, as will any expected gamma exposure this week. And you know, the more points of validation we have, the more confidence we can have in the theory moving forward. Don't be scared. It's okay. I'll see you guys all. It's bright and early tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Thank you for hanging out, and I appreciate it. I hope I got to all your questions. If you have something that's really, really super important that you think needs to be answered, feel free to DM me on the Discord. I'll get around to you when I can. And I appreciate it, guys. Have a great night. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Rico! Not an advisor. Frigulon.